Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our homeroom. I'm really excited today because I have a visitor, a guest here that's going to speak today on just some tips that we all could use to help us with our children's behaviors that may be a little bit different than what we're used to dealing with. I know so many of the parents that listen have children with ADHD or are neurodivergent in some way, and sometimes that comes with some different emotional reactions or even executive functioning skill issues that can really be a challenge for us because we're not used to knowing how to deal with all of that. So today I'm really excited to introduce to you Dr. Lisa Spector. She is the Division Chief of Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics at Nemours Children's Hospital in Orlando, Florida, and is a professor of pediatrics through the University of Central Florida. She co-leads the Central Florida Behavioral Health Hub, funded through the Florida Department of Health Title V program. She is the co-chair of the Florida State Health Improvement Plan Mental Well-Being and Substance Abuse Prevention Priority Area Workgroup. She is also a board member of the Mental Health Association of Central Florida and the co-creator of the Step Up Parent Program, which, hi Lisa, go ahead and say hi.
Hello, Kristen. So great to be here with you today.
So I met Lisa because I heard about this Step Up program through a client of mine who has a daughter with ADHD. She went to this course. She raved about this course, how helpful it was, not only for her, but for her child, which I love that so much. And I know you'll talk a little more in detail probably later about the program. But this program works with parents and with children. So it's kind of while the parents are getting help, so are the children. And so it's just a way to give everybody strategies for dealing with some of these, extra behaviors that can sometimes be challenging for us. So after I heard about her, I met with her and talked with her, and I was like, please come on the program because I think I have so many parents that could benefit. And so today we're going to talk about some really big issues that I hear from parents all the time, and I know you probably do too. So I'm really excited. So before we get started in the questions, why don't you share a little bit about your background and kind of what it is you do and just why you feel like, we need some extra help with some of our children today.
Absolutely. It's really not a lot of people know what a developmental behavioral pediatrician is. So
Mm-hmm.
we can delve into that. So it's somebody who goes through residency in pediatrics and then a fellowship training for 2 to 3 years in developmental behavioral pediatrics. So I did that because I was about to start to have my own family, and I realized as a pediatrician, we don't really get a lot of training in behavior management skills and strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in a previous location in Kansas City, I learned about developmental behavioral peace, and I was like, oh, I need more of that information. So I segued from what I was doing in my pediatric career and then went to do a fellowship in that. And I love it. It was eye-opening, tremendously helpful to me in my practice and myself as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting that we don't have more support in the background of the behavioral part. You know what I mean? Like, I feel
Oh,
like that
yeah.
shows up in pretty much all areas of living, though. It's like we're just now finally coming around to being like, hey, everything, our behavior and our relationships and our emotions are all kind of important and they're all tied together. And maybe we should know a little bit more about how all those interact. So I think that's amazing. So, what is it you do now?
So at Nemours, as the division chief of developmental behavioral peds, I run the developmental behavioral peds clinic. We see kids for neurodevelopmental disabilities, including autism and ADHD. We also see some kids who have anxiety and or depression
Mm,
co-occurring with either of those. We see
mm.
kids with global developmental delay or the genetic conditions as well.
Okay.
We provide both assessment and treatment, including behavioral strategies families can use in the home, getting them appropriate referrals for additional evaluation and treatment, as well as medication management when it's necessary.
That's awesome. I think the more and more resources parents realize that are out there, I think sometimes we get in our little bubbles as parents. And if we didn't have someone in our family or a close friend that has a child that needs this extra support, we don't really know where to go. So I'm so excited to hear from you today. Um, So, one, as a teacher and a parent, so I was in the classroom for a really long time, and also I've been a parent. I have a 17-year-old. And one issue that I have heard parents really struggle with, but also teachers as well, they are not sure how to handle impulse control. Like, it seems like our kids nowadays, at least what I noticed, is everybody wanted to touch everybody else, like in the classroom. It was just like, and I mean, I remember at the time thinking it felt like they were trying to get connection in some way. They just wanted to be that person's friend so bad. So we have a lot of that, or just also part of that impulse control was, the shouting out answers and just not being able to sit still for very long or take their turns, when it came to talking out in class. So do you have any suggestions or understandings you can provide us about impulse control, just for parents as well? Because they're dealing with it at home. I dealt with it in the classroom, but so many parents have it at home and aren't sure they don't know really what to do.
That's such a great question. So, impulse control is related to our executive functioning, which happens in the prefrontal cortex of our brain, so the very front part of our brain. So, as we mature and develop over time, our impulse control gets better. For kids who continually have a struggle with their impulse control and overactivity, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
um, and inattention, and it becomes impairing for them, both at
Mm-hmm.
home and in the classroom. We have to think about things like ADHD, right? Like you were mentioning before. So, but impulse control, there's many ways that we can help our children, whether they're struggling with ADHD or whether they're not
Mm-hmm.
struggling with ADHD. So
Right.
it's something we have to build over time. And so there's different things that we can do as parents to help facilitate one's impulse control and build their executive functioning skills,
Mm-hmm.
which is directly tied to those. So you can think of it a way of self-control. So another way of like reframing even just ADHD is thinking about it in terms of self-control, one's ability to control their self in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
to reduce the distraction from whether it's an internal distraction. So, like a kid who might think to themselves, oh, I need to turn that thing in. I'm going to do that right now. Instead of realizing, no, I'm in class right now. I can't turn that in right now. I have to wait till later. Or an external distraction, like a kid doing something, and we want to then give attention to that child versus paying attention to the teacher in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you mentioned, many other impulse control situations going on. Feeling people want to touch somebody in that moment, or they want that toy
Mm-hmm.
right now and they can't wait to share it or wait their
Yes.
turn to share it. So, some things that we can do from a parental or teacher standpoint are things like, frequent reminders. So, reminding kids the things that we want them to do. Oftentimes, we are reminding kids of the things we don't want them to do. So we'll
Yes.
say, stop hitting, or stop taking the toy, or stop running. And for kids, especially young kids and kids with ADHD who are older, when they hear that, stop running, stop hitting, they hear run and hit, right? So it's like that immediate moment, and then they'll
Yes.
be running or hitting more. So we have to be really cognizant as teachers and parents to say, okay, they're running and hitting. What do I want them to do instead? So instead of hitting, the positive opposite is what we call that. The positive opposite of hitting is keeping your hands to yourself or using gentle hands. So making sure we're saying that out loud. Okay, gentle hands, show me how to use gentle hands, show me how to keep your hands to yourself. And similarly to like running or anything else,
Mm-hmm.
you have to really cognitively stop and think, what do I actually want them to be doing in this
Mm-hmm.
moment? And then telling them to do that.
And that's great because that's such a simple switch. And I remember even as a classroom teacher, yes, we are always constantly telling them what we don't want, like all the time. Stop doing
Yeah.
this, stop doing that, quit this, quit that. And as soon as I say, oh my gosh, I love how so and so is standing so nicely, or I love when you guys sit so great, it's so, when you're nice and quiet, I mean, they immediately, whoop, they all do it. And it was such a better energy in the classroom because I was so talking about all the good things the kids were doing. And so it's such a simple switch, but it's like I don't. It's hard to remember we need to do it. It's like it's not that hard to do, but it does take training to stop focusing on what we don't want and start focusing on what we do. And I really liked specifically the one where you said using gentle hands, because I think not only does it say like we keep our hands to ourselves, But when you say gentle hands, there's almost a call, there's a word that comes across with that too. Not just the direction of what to do, but like how it's like gentle. And then you're like, oh, like I feel like the kids would be like, oh. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a great strategy.
And the other one you mentioned, which is labeled praise. So labeled praise is like giving kids praise, but specifically for what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, that's so spot on.
Mm-hmm.
When we praise one child
Mm-hmm.
for doing what we want them to be doing, the other kids pay attention
Mm-hmm.
because we're giving that child attention and they
Mm-hmm.
want some of that good stuff too. So they're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, I can do what she's doing. I can sit still too, or stand
Mm-hmm.
in line quietly, at
Mm-hmm.
least for a little while. They're probably going to need lots of reminders to do it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are things that we can do in the moment or before it happens. Something that we can do after, like sometimes kids will, like let's say they do hit somebody in the school, and these days, like our schools take those things really seriously, and that can be a real stress or strain on parents because then their kids are getting sent home and they're trying to work and trying to parent or get their child to learn at home. It's hard, right?
Yes.
So one of the things we can do is role play. So oftentimes when kids engage in misbehavior, we always want to ask them why did they do that? Even young kids who the why question is a very complicated question. Little kids have a hard time with abstract reasoning, so to come up with the why is very complicated. So you'll get a blank stare, which then frustrates parents even more. So I try to advise parents to stay away from the why questions because we can generally figure out what is the why, and instead focusing on the what. So, okay, when you were in school today and this happened, what could you do differently next time? So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing to do. Another thing you can do is role play it. So I talk to parents about getting stuffed animals out and having the child role play being the teacher or the parent, and then the parent being the child, because then the parent can role play the ideal situation or the ideal way for the child to respond. Or you can role play both, right? You can role play what happened. So the
Mm-hmm.
child can then, from the teacher's perspective, develop some problem solving and some perspective taking
Mm-hmm.
of what that might feel like for the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can experience both what went didn't go right and then also the more ideal way of responding in that situation too. And it takes
Mm-hmm.
the pressure off the child and they're not the ones in trouble. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of like this. They love being the teacher or the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and I
it's
think not being in trouble is a big part. Not that there shouldn't be, obviously, they're already experiencing consequences, right? The school
absolutely.
already has the consequences. So, not that the parent is dismissing the consequences or dismissing the severity of it, but to not add to the judgment only because the judgment will impede the child's openness to get into what happened, to really explore the feelings of, oh, that's probably not great, or like I know, at least in my experience, when we're judging a child for being wrong or bad, or we're getting on them, or we're adding to that judgment that probably the child already has, they're less likely to want to admit they did something wrong, right? But when we're coming from that non-judgment place and we're just like, let's just talk this through, they will figure out on their, oh yeah, that probably wasn't the best way to handle that. Now that I'm in the shoes of the other person, I see that. And that's what we want them to come to. Then you can say, yeah, so unfortunately, you have to stay home from school today because that you can see that really was, harmful for the teacher or whatever it is. But just kind of keep that judgment at bay. So yeah, I think that's really important, and I love the role playing idea. I never would have thought of that, but that's such a great way to get them involved in the real situation, to really see it from both perspectives. And what a great way to teach that empathy.
And you're right, it's so important to really be cautious of how we're reacting or responding to our children, especially when they struggle with neurodevelopmental disabilities like ADHD,
Mm,
because the kid's job is to go to school and to learn. And when they're not doing well in their job, they feel it.
yeah.
And then they feel it from the teachers, they feel it from the school, they feel it from their parents. And that can have a negative impact on them over time. It can lead to anxiety, it can lead to depression, it can lead to suicidality or substance use, to self medicate. So the more we can focus on the positive, the more we can recognize that we're building their skills
Mm-hmm.
and that their job is to learn. and it's going to take a lot of practice for learning these skills.
Mm-hmm. And but like if the parents like, but I'm on your side, I'm on your team, and we're going to figure this out together. And not that there's consequences to that, but you're going to be on the side with them, helping them through. I always say that I like to think of consequences from the parent's job as like gutter bumpers in bowling. You know, they're not
Yes.
mean. Gutter bumpers are helpful. They're like, no, 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 we're not going to go over that direction. No, 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 we're not going to go over there. But they're not mean and harsh. They're just like, yep, this is where we stay. And I'm going to bump you over this way when you're not doing, we're, on the right path. And I think if parents can think of it that way as just, consequences are a way to guide, and you are the parent, and the more you can stay that, on their team, we're on the same side, we're going to figure this out together. School is hard. I think it just goes a long way. Kind of along with the impulse control, another big issue I feel like parents aren't sure how to handle, and I also struggled with it in the classroom, was emotional regulation. I think that kids these days seem to have really big emotions, and when they are upset, it seems to last long, probably just in my perception, last longer than it should, or than I think in the past it would. I don't know. It seems new, the emotional regulation piece, or we're seeing it with older children, whatever it may be. So I know so many teachers and parents struggle with a child who is dysregulated in the classroom, or so many parents are dealing with it. Their child does hold it all together in the classroom and then comes home and is completely emotionally dysregulated at night, in the evening. So do you have any insight on emotional regulation, how to help them, but and also how to help us? Because it's stressful for us too. Like it can trigger us into our own emotional dysregulation. So what are some tips to help our children, but also ourselves when that meltdown situation kind of happens?
Yes, we've all been through difficulties with our children and emotion regulation. It is a skill that they need to develop, and the
Mm.
earlier they develop that skill, the more successful they'll be
Hmm.
lifelong. We
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm sure we all can identify adults who haven't really mastered that skill quite yet. So it's really important to help our children build the emotion regulation skill. And I think there's lots of factors into why we see more kids struggling with it these days. I think one of the reasons is that, I think we are all of us as parents are well-meaning. We want to make sure that our children are happy and content, and that's the goal. We all want
Mm-hmm.
happiness and
Mm-hmm.
contentedness. And with social media, we see so many people. It feels like it's a rat race, to be
Yeah.
happy and content.
Yeah.
And I think that then might spill over to our children. And I think it's important to realize that it's okay to have all of our emotions. It's okay to be happy and content, and it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated. And recognizing that all of those feelings are our feelings, and really embracing the feelings that we're having in those moments and processing them, giving us time and space
Mm-hmm.
to really process those emotions, to let them sink in and not just try to push them away. Because when we feel those, it's really in feeling those and having the time and space to process them that
Mm-hmm.
we're figuring out how to more effectively process them. So you mentioned our program that we use for the kids when they come to our step up parent training, our group parent training. So in that instance, the kids go to learn the zones of regulation. So it helps them identify their feelings or their emotions based on colors. And the
Mm-hmm.
colors are just four simple colors, and they're related to the status of hierarchy or excitement. So blue is calm, green is sort of thought of as the ideal status. Yellow is a little bit more excited, and red is in really high energy place, whether that's angry or really elated.
Mm-hmm.
So kids can then identify what they're feeling based on their color, which can be helpful for parents too. If they can't say the feeling, they can at least say, I'm in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. A
Hmm.
parent on a stressful day can say to the child, I'm in the red zone. The child gets it. Okay,
Yes.
mom's having a hard day today.
Yes.
I'm going to try to be on my best behavior.
Yeah, let's just communicate our feelings to each other. I remember actually that reminds me when I was in college, actually, I think it was like an educational psychology class, and she used to put on her, and this was a great idea for teachers. She used to have the seven dwarfs, like little statues of the seven dwarfs, and she would put them on her desk every day for like today I'm sleepy, today I'm happy,
Oh,
today I'm
that's
grumpy. And I
cute.
thought, what a great way to communicate our feelings. And so I kind of took that when I was a classroom teacher, and I used to actually spend time talking about emotions because I felt like it was so important. And we talked about the mood meter, I used to call it, which is like the emotional scale. And we talked about different words for emotions because it was also a vocabulary, lesson. I taught fourth grade. And so then I had the kids pick their out of like hundreds of different like those emoji emotions that with the little emojis, and they picked their like five feelings that they felt like they felt the most often in a scale, and they put them on this little card that they hung off the side of their desk with a clothespin. And then we could use that to move it. And some days, again, even if it wasn't perfectly, it was just the idea that, oh, the awareness of what my feelings are. Oh, today I'm grumpy, or today I'm happy, or I'm excited, or I'm wound up, or angry, whatever it is. And then you can look at your friends and see, oh, they're grumpy. It just helps with empathy. It helps identify our emotion. So I love that the simple thing with using the colors, using it as an adult too, modeling it even between spouses or partners, like
Mhm.
having the adults in the group use it with each other. So it's such a great way to help us understand that emotions are normal. We all have them. We're going to have good days and bad days, and that's okay. So I love that so much. That's so great. So what is something in that moment? Breathing works, but do you have any other, is there certain things I could say, or certain things you've had other parents tell you that has worked for them in that moment to calm themselves?
As parents, as human beings, right? It's really easy for us to have a lot of negative recordings that are playing in our brain.
Mm,
And when our children are dysregulated or when we're stressed out, those negative thoughts pop up more frequently. And they can be a wide variety of different negative messaging. They're usually all or none thinking. They can be negative things about ourselves, our child, our partner, whatever. And so it's important to recognize when we're having those negative thoughts and then replacing them with a
mm,
positive affirmation. And that can be something silly and funny, like get the water, mama's on fire. Or it could be something cool, soothing and calming, like I got this, I can do this.
mm-hmm,
Parenting is hard, but I am doing the best that I can.
mm.
I can get through this.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
being aware of that for yourself and
Mm-hmm,
reframing it is really key to
mm-hmm.
getting through those hard times. I would color when my child would
Oh, I love
tantrum, and she
that.
would tantrum for hours sometimes.
Yeah.
I would sit and just get a coloring book out and color. And then it would also help distract her because when she got calm, she would see me coloring and be like, oh, I want to color. And then it was a good
Yes.
opportunity for me to say to her when she calmed down, oh my gosh, great job calming your body. Yeah, let's color together.
My only other question with that is, and even in the classroom, when there's a public situation where it is maybe in the classroom for a teacher, or it is maybe in a shopping mall, or at the store, or where, or at relatives for the holidays, and that's the moment your child has the meltdown. How do you handle it any differently, and how do you handle the judgment that so often unfortunately comes from strangers or friends or family members, who don't understand the way to handle that? So that's kind of a two-part question. So one is, do you handle that any differently when it's a room full of other adults or other children, like in the classroom? And then two, when you are managing it, any other mantra ideas or statements we can say to help manage the other people in the classroom or in the room, either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think what comes lots of different situations and scenarios there. What comes to mind is when you're out in public. I think that's the hardest one, where your kid's emotionally dysregulated and you're in public and you're trying to give them time and space to calm down, but then people are walking by you and glaring at you and giving you these looks or making snide comments. So I think one is, we have to realize that we're all in this together, and what we've all been through having, well, those of us who haven't had children very well may have children in the future. And so find ways to support each other, right? So to keep ourselves from passing judgment and instead to realize, okay, how can I support
Oh,
this
that's
caregiver and this child
great.
in this moment? Because this is hard. It might be activating ourselves because it's really loud or it's overstimulating as the passerby, but thinking to ourselves, the next step is, how can I support them? Maybe I can make a general statement like, I know it's hard right now, but things are going to get better. I can say, as a pediatrician raising my children when they were having a hard time in public, and parents said that to me in passing by, it really helped to make me feel more calm, to be like, okay, yes, it is going to get better. And I recognize these people are not judging me in the way that I might be thinking that they are right now.
Mm.
And so, being that pacifier who gives the support, who gives the wink or just the smile of acknowledgement of like, I know this times are tough and it's going to get better, or
Mhm.
making the statement. And then as the parent too, for those parents who aren't listening to your podcast, who haven't thought about taking that next step, is to sometimes over communicating can be really helpful. So if we can be in that calm state and say, kind of broadly to the world around us and not to the child, not specifically to that person, yeah, we're working on emotion regulation right now. It's hard. Like saying a broad statement that says to the world, without saying to anybody specifically, I've got this. I know it's stressful right now.
Yes.
This is what we're working on. Please don't judge us. Please give us some support and empathy here.
Yeah, I think just that's perfect. Just stating it shows that you're not out of control. The child may
Exactly.
look that way, but you have the situation under control and you are very deliberate about this is how we handle this scenario. So I love that. Like, yep, we're emotionally regulating right now. And then yeah, that's something as simple as that. And I think talking to, as often as we can, and everybody's family is different, but as much as you can try preempting it before going over for a holiday event, or if you know your child gets very overwhelmed with, a lot of people around, that's a really, good time to make sure to talk to the rest of the family members and let them know, hey, she gets really overwhelmed. And so if so, just so you know, here's how we handle it. So, if there is a parent that is listening and they would like some more help and they're like, oh my gosh, these tips are great, but I have specific questions about my child, what's the best way for them to find you or to find your class? How often does the class run? So, give us a little bit of details about how they can find you if they need some more help.
Sure. So you can, if they want to meet with us in person in our clinic, the number to the Nemours Developmental Behavioral Peds Clinic is 407-650-7715. They can
Awesome.
also find us on, nemours.org dash slash services slash developmental behavioral pediatrics.
Okay.
Um, we have our Step Up program that runs generally during the academic year. So we have one in the fall, one in the winter that starts in January, and then one in the spring that starts in March.
Okay. And how long did those run? I can't
They
remember. Eight
last
weeks?
8 weeks. So they're an hour and a half
Hmm.
for 8 weeks, eight
And it's
consecutive
and
generally.
it's once a week, and then while the parents are meeting, the children also have a session as well, correct?
To the zones of regulation.
Yes.
Yep. So the kids meet as a group to go through the zones of regulation. The parents meet as a group to go through the Step Up parent curriculum.
Yeah, okay, good. I will add that information in. So, parents, if you're looking for more help, I'll add that information below. Thank you so much for coming in today to speak. It's so great to hear all of these extra supports that our children have, whether you have a child with ADHD or not. Our children all have emotions. They're all dealing with how to regulate those emotions. So these are really great tips for parents. So thank you so much for coming in, and we'll be in touch. And have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.